Of the West Surrey Shadow Authority. It's my role to conduct the meeting till a chair is appointed, and I'll be giving you an update on the elections. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the first meeting of West Surrey Shadow Authority on the 21st of May 2026 at 2 p.m. and the Council Chamber at Guildford Borough Council, who we'd like to thank for hosting us today. I'd also like to welcome you as members of the Shadow Authority, officers from a number of different local authorities, and for those members of the public who have made it into the public gallery, thank you. Those watching online, and for any media in attendance. We also have representatives here from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government for the inaugural meeting of West Surrey Shadow Authority. So I'd like to thank Ruth Miller and Richard Engelby for attending. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Ruth. The Shadow Authority is required to adopt standing orders, known as procedure rules, for meetings of the Shadow Authority. The Shadow Authority procedure rules for part of the proposed constitution will be considered and hopefully later adopted. However, I think and I hope you'll all appreciate that I'll be exercising the spirit of the draft constitution ahead of the formal adoption of that constitution. Webcasting. The meeting is being broadcast live on Guildford Borough Council website. Whilst every effort is made to film only meeting participants, due to the layout of the room, it is not possible to guarantee that you will not be filmed. By attending the meeting, you accept you may be filmed and that the footage will be made available on the Council's website. The stream of this meeting is owned by West Surrey Council, and the unauthorised use of it is prohibited. The people featured in our webcast have agreed to appear only on the Council's official webcast. It is not permitted to download any footage nor upload it, whether in part or in full, to any other website without the written permission of West Surrey Council and those featured in the webcast. Fire drill. There is no fire drill expected today. In case of emergency, if the fire alarm does sound, follow me, because I'll be making my way to the exit, but there will be officers here to make sure that you all evacuate the building safely. If you require any assistance, please make yourself known to one of the council officials. Thank you. Mobile phones. For the avoidance of doubt, please have your mobile phones on silent, and if you have them on the desk, please away from the microphones, as they may cause some feedback. If you are speaking, then please, it's a firm press on the button. Wait for the red light to come on, and once you finish speaking, please remember to switch your microphone off. So, first item of business is the election of a chair, and I will now move on the first item, which is the election of chair of the West Surrey Shadow Authority. As noted above, whilst the procedure rules should be adopted later in this meeting, I intend to apply them in the spirit of this stage. Procedure Rule 2.5.1 states that the returning officer shall chair the meeting until such time as the chair has been elected. They shall call for a motion that a member of the council take the chair, and any such motion, once seconded, will be put to the vote without debate. Can I please call for any nominations to the election of chair?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Penny Rivers, and I believe I have a seconder.
I so second.
Are there any other nominations? I see no hands. Therefore, if members are content, we will move to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Penny Rivers being the duly elected chair, please show your hands now. I think we're good, Simon. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, members, that's a bit of a strength test to keep your arm up for that length of time, so I do apologise. You'll also notice this is the first time that I've had to keep to a script, and this is very much against my nature, so I will follow the script as much as I can. All those against? And abstentions, please. Thank you, members. Thank you. And without further ado, Councillor Penny Rivers has been elected as Chair of the West Surrey Shadow Authority and shall now take her place on the dais.
I, Penny Rivers, having been elected to the office of the Chair of West Surrey Shadow Authority, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you for those who elected me to this office, the inaugural Chair of the West Surrey Shadow Authority. We are all making history today. So welcome all. And thank you to the officers here today and to all of those who have worked so hard to make this local democracy work. The election was a consequential election, and what we will do will have a very major effect on the residents of West Surrey. Voters have placed their trust in us to represent them and to act as their advocate. And now that we are elected, let us remember that democracy is at its best when we disagree and debate, but it must always be done with respect. Our priority is to ensure that residents see the benefits of this new West Surrey Council, a council that is responsive, well run and able to deliver high-level services from Vestment Day in 10 months' time. This is no mean task, but we have an opportunity for a fresh start to shape a council that reflects our values and serves our communities across West Surrey. And I am confident that we can do this, for we are better when we work together. And before the meeting proper, it is my privilege and pleasure to invite Reverend Brian Prothero from St John's Church in Farncombe to lead us in a time of reflection.
I am indeed grateful for the invitation and the opportunity to lead you in a time of prayerful reflection today, this afternoon, given the lack of availability of the Archbishop of Canterbury. We hold up before God the life and work from today's inaugural meeting. We hold up the future of West Surrey Shadow Authority and Council to be. We bid a blessing on all of our colleagues. God, you are the Lord of all, and in your heart you are vulnerable in the struggle to challenge the powers that rule our world. Through all of humanity, who recognise the needy, the compassionate, and those whose lives are unfulfilled. May the truth always be found in our discussions, decisions and actions. Grant us the spirit to yearn, to see right prevail, and to be single-minded in working for the peace and well-being of those communities we're called to serve. Let us remember before God and each other the need for unity of purpose, for compassion, and a spirit of humble service in this broken world. O God, the King of righteousness, lead us, we pray, in ways of justice and peace. Inspire us to break down all tyranny and oppression, to gain for every person their true reward, and from every person their due service, that each may live for all, and all may care for each, in the name of Jesus Christ. So again we pray for each other, that our vision of society for which we may dream might be realized through integrity of order, through respect and peaceful process. And may the peace of the living God, which passes all understanding, be with you all this day and forevermore.
Thank you, Brian, and please take greetings from this council to the congregation of St John's. Thank you. May I remind members about the formality of this meeting, and please address the chair at the start of any remarks which you may make. All speaking in this meeting is through myself as the chair of the Shadow Authority. I am completely content for speakers to remain seated should they wish, and if you are uncomfortably hot, please feel free to remove ties and jackets. If there is a need to adjourn the meeting at any time, I will advise that the meeting is being adjourned and state the time that it will be reconvened. There is no exempt business this afternoon, but if we do resolve to go into private session to discuss any exempt information, members of the press and members of the public shall be excluded on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information under the relevant paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. You will all have received the agenda pack last week for today's meeting. So we come now to agenda item 3, which is the appointment of the Vice Chair. And as noted in the earlier Council procedure rules, is there a nomination?
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your election. I would like to propose the nomination of Councillor Masuk Mia to the role of Vice Chair of the West Surrey Shadow Authority.
Thank you. And is there a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second that nomination.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? I see none. So, all in favour of the appointment of the Deputy Chair, please show. Okay. Thank you. So that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Mia, would you like to join us up here?
I, Masuk Mia, having been elected to the office of Vice Chair of West Surrey Shadow Authority, declare that I, that office upon myself, and will duly and fulfill the duties of it, according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
This can be found on pages 9 to 12 of your agenda. Andrew, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the outcome of West Surrey Shadow Authority elections as declared on the 8th of May 2026. 90 members were duly elected to represent each ward across the West Surrey area, who are listed in the report on pages 9 to 11 of the agenda pack. And that concludes my report, subject to any questions, Chair.
Are there any questions? No. And I'm happy to move the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Yes. The recommendation is that it is recommended that the West Surrey Shadow Authority note the returns. Are they so noted? Agenda item 5 is apologies for absence. The apologies that have been received by officers are, they are the apologies received in advance of the meeting. Shannon Says Marshall, Sally Barker, James Steele, Steve Greentree, Paul Deach, David Evans and Marissa Heath. Agenda item 6, declarations of interest. The interim, this is about declarations of disclosable and pecuniary interests, and the interim monitoring officer intends to grant a dispensation later in the meeting in accordance with their delegated authority for all West Surrey Shadow Authority members in respect of agenda item 15, to enable us to participate in consideration of the scheme of member allowances for the shadow period. Do you have any other declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Agenda item 7 is the proposed constitution for West Surrey Shadow Authority, and this is found on pages 13 to 308 in your agendas. I invite Councillor Anne-Marie Barker of the West Surrey Joint Committee to introduce the report and to propose the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair of the West Surrey Joint Committee, I would like to introduce to you the proposed constitution for the West Surrey Shadow Authority, and that's being recommended to you by the Joint Committee for adoption today. Firstly, to deal with our legal obligations, I would remind councillors that the Surrey Structural Changes Order 2026 provides that the Shadow Authority must adopt a leader and executive cabinet model, and the proposed constitution that you have before you today implements that governance model. The legislation also mandates other governance requirements, including the need for a code of conduct, provisions for a scrutiny function, determination of local choice functions, and the roles of interim statutory officers, and such requirements are met by the adoption of this constitution. The Constitution is, of course, not only required to meet our legal obligations, and it is essential that we have a robust governance framework to guide our roles as councillors, our decision-making and our ethics and conduct at the outset of this very important shadow period. The Constitution, in the view of the West Surrey Joint Committee, provides such a framework, and its adoption will provide transparency and clarity both for ourselves, for officers who support us, and for the public who we serve. To be clear, The proposed constitution before you is for the shadow period only, and it therefore reflects West Surrey's limited role during this period. A further constitution will be adopted later in the year for implementation from vesting day on the 1st of April 2027, and that will reflect our broader role in terms of regulatory matters and service delivery. The Constitution itself proposes a subcommittee to lead on the preparation of the Constitution for post-vesting day and makes recommendations to the Shadow Authority for its adoption ahead of that time. The Constitution proposed for the shadow period, the one that we'll be determining today, establishes 4 committees of the Shadow Authority, each politically balanced, comprising 15 elected members, and they are the Standards Committee, the Audit and Governance Committee, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Employment Committee. It's further proposed that recruitment will take place to enable the Shadow Authority to appoint 2 independent co-opted members to the Audit and Governance Committee and at least 1 independent member to the Standards Committee. The proposed constitution also provides that the Standards Committee establishes 2 subcommittees to deal with constitutional arrangements, as already discussed, and conduct and ethics complaints, and that the Employment Committee establishes 3 subcommittees to deal with various senior officer employment matters. The Constitution, as I've mentioned, provides for a leader and executive model of governance and clearly sets out the responsibilities of the shadow authorities and its committees, as opposed to the responsibilities of the executive leader and their executive members. Please note that during this shadow period, any councillor may raise a suggested revision to the Constitution with the monitoring officer, and that then may be considered by the Constitution Subcommittee, which will report back any recommendations for change to the Shadow Authority. I would encourage councillors to adopt the Constitution for West Surrey Shadow Authority today to enable the authority to start operating in a safe and legal way with immediate effect. I therefore move the 3 recommendations in the report set out on page 13 of the agenda pack. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Follows. So are there any speakers? Councillor Austin.
And to the Vice Chair on your appointment. Turning to the Constitution, I'd also like to thank officers for the considerable amount of work that has clearly gone into preparing this interim document at pace. No Constitution can be perfect on day one, particularly for a brand new authority of this scale and complexity. There are areas within the draft which are either silent or, in our view, not yet balanced, and which will require further consideration and refinement, particularly around scrutiny arrangements, governance balance, and some of the delegated powers. I know my colleague, Councillor Hulley, will be touching on some of those issues in more detail shortly. I must place on record my disappointment that the position of Chair of Standards will now be held by a member of the administration. In my view, that weakens genuine democratic scrutiny, and it creates the real prospect of the administration marking its own homework. I'm similarly concerned that the current wording around Vice-Chair appointments will result in those positions being filled entirely by members of the administration. Again, that is not healthy scrutiny. In particular, the workload of the ONS committee is likely to be significant, and we can reasonably expect a substantial amount of work to be undertaken through task and finish groups. At Surrey County Council, this is managed through the use of 2 vice chairs chairing those committees, something I think it would be sensible to implement here. I'd therefore like to propose the following amendment. A similar amendment, I note, which was agreed at East Surrey Council yesterday. The Chair and I believe you have received the amendment. The reason for the amendment is to strengthen cross-party scrutiny arrangements, support the anticipated workload of the ONS committee and the associated task and finish groups, and ensure broader opposition involvement in scrutiny leadership. The amendment is to state the Chair and 2 Vice Chairs of the ONS committee shall be appointed by the committee at its first meeting. The chair shall not be from the largest political group represented on the Shadow Authority.
Councillor Austin, you have just 25 seconds.
Thank you. One vice chair shall be from the principal opposition group, and the second vice chair shall be from a this is the wrong one. One vice chair shall be from the principal opposition group. I think I've sent the actual correct wording through to. If you could put it up on the screen.
And do you have a seconder?
I do. Thank you, Councillor.
And Councillor Hulley, do you reserve your right to speak now, or would you like to speak now?
Madam Chair, if I could speak now, I would be grateful. Thank you very much.
Of order. I'm sorry, but whenever there's an email, you're ping, 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 and I cannot concentrate on what is being said. Would it be possible for members just to mute their laptops so that whenever the emails come through, it doesn't go ping, 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 ping across the chamber?
Laptops and phones should be muted, and it has been brought to my attention that there's photography in the room as well whilst people are speaking, and I think that that is not appropriate. So please do not take photos while people are speaking. Councillor Hulley, I believe you're about to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and that was a very practical and sensible suggestion from our colleague there. And could I also take this opportunity to congratulate you and your Vice Chair on your elections, and I wish both of you all strength. Yes, I do second the motion amendment of Councillor Alston, and I do so because I want to ask colleagues to briefly reflect on the minutes of the West Surrey Joint Committee of the 14th of April. Indeed, on page 19, Councillor Paul Follows stated for the record, and I quote, "I have no objection to opposition members being the predominant chairs and vice chairs of the main committees." He also stressed, rightly so, the need to establish from the outset values of openness, accountability, and a commitment to effective scrutiny. These words, Chair, must now be matched by action. If scrutiny is to command public confidence, then it should be reflected in a second Vice Chair being appointed to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It is also about strengthening governance. A more balanced leadership structurally enhances legitimacy, avoids any perception of self-scrutiny, and reinforces public trust. It is also, as Councillor Alston mentioned, a practical necessity. Two vice chairs also will assist with the scale of the scrutiny workload during the shadow period, and which will then ensure broader leadership capacity and resilience. In short, Chair, this amendment embeds openness, embeds accountability, and embeds effective scrutiny, which is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Follows.
There we go. Congratulations, Chair, on your elevation. Fantastic to be finally here in this place. And, of course, to speak on, for the first time myself, but on the Constitution of all things. In many other councils, constitutions obviously already exist and you walk into this on day one. Obviously that isn't the case for West Surrey, and it's important that we take this seriously. Whilst it is not in effect until we pass the Constitution, the themes in the Constitution, the spirit of the Constitution is what we are following right now. That Constitution clearly states a methodology for changes to the Constitution, and there is a reason that that is articulated in that way. That is to discourage changes to a serious document being made on the hoof by full council. Now, I don't want to start this council by doing exactly that sort of behaviour. I was surprised to see it in the other place yesterday, and I think following the spirit of the Constitution, we should look at effectively what it says, which is to make sure that we take changes to the Constitution, proposed changes, through the Standards Committee, Subcommittee on Constitution, bring them back to standards so they've had proper scrutiny, officer comment, and other consideration. The other point is that changes to the Constitution often have unforeseen consequences. It's one of the main reasons why you give them proper scrutiny and review them. So there is a slight irony, I think, in agreeing to expeditiously change the Constitution to create more scrutiny, whilst not giving this very measure any scrutiny before being brought here. So I would make the offer to the Leader of the Opposition that I'd be very happy to support your amendment, and would ask my colleagues to do the same if you would agree for it to be referred to the Standards Committee and its Subcommittee on Constitution for proper review through that process. If the proposer of the amendment is not able to agree that, then I must ask my colleagues to vote this amendment down.
Councillor Austin, do you so agree?
Thank you, Chair. On the assumption that the group will support at the committee this proposed amendment, I'm happy to accept it.
And only on that ground?
I'm happy to... shall I sum up my amendment and then we shall hold the vote?
Well, are there any other speakers? Councillor Potter.
There we go, getting the microphone to work. A couple of quick points on this. If we turn to the report in front of us, we can see that there is a list on page 14 of options available to us. It is true that there is an option available to us to amend the Constitution right now, but it is also worth noting that that option is not recommended, specifically because it would deny our professional officers the opportunity to provide advice to members on the consequences and legality of any proposed changes. I do not think it would set a good tone for this Council in its first act to be ignoring the advice from officers on our Constitution, which is modelled, after all, on best practice. I would also note that, as somebody who also has the privilege of being a county councillor, it is somewhat ironic to hear the opposition group talk about the importance of ensuring that opposition committees that scrutiny committees are chaired by the opposition, when the Conservatives at County Council, with their majority, chair the majority of scrutiny committees and relegate everybody else to bit-part roles at best. So, whilst I definitely think we should be setting the bar higher for scrutiny at the West Surrey Authority, I would concur that it is better to do so by bringing this and any other amendments to the Standards Committee for further deliberation and discussion, and ideally doing a whole package of changes. And I'll also just finish by noting that we have almost 300 pages of Constitution. I'm sure that all of us, if we read every 300 pages, would find things in there which we would like to see slightly different. But we have a process set out in that Constitution for revisions to be able to be made speedily and through a democratic process and with proper deliberation and discussion. And for that reason, I will be voting against this amendment, because I think that is the process we should be following, as our officers have recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. This is the inaugural meeting of this council, and just to remind people also that any talking should be directed through the chair, for which you have to signal that you wish to speak and be called to speak. So any other talking is a distraction to those in the room who are carefully listening to the speaker. So please, may I not have to remind you again. Are there any other speakers? It is my view that the amendment therefore stands. So would you like to sum up, Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Chair. Members and officers alike have all spoken in recent weeks about the importance of culture, a culture of collaboration, professionalism and constructive working. We've heard encouraging words about cooperation and openness. So I am slightly concerned at the very first substantive item we debate. We are already seeing rigidity about what is in reality a very modest and reasonable amendment, designed simply to strengthen scrutiny. And let me be clear, this amendment would not directly benefit our Conservative council group. We're proposing it because we believe in strong scrutiny, democratic balance and constructive challenge. On the basis of the olive branch that has been offered to me, on reflection, I am therefore prepared to withdraw this amendment and proceed with agreement of the Constitution, on the basis that it will therefore then be referred to overview and scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. So we go back to the substantive. I beg your pardon. Councillor Mullins, you wish to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to, first of all, congratulate you and the Vice Chair on their election and echo Councillor Austin's thanks to the officers and members for all the work they've done in preparing this constitution. I would like to propose a motion which concerns speaking at meetings. I'm not proposing that we amend the constitution. The motion is that views of all councillors are sought on whether chairs of committees should be given the discretion to allow members to speak more than once on a particular item at meetings of the authority, and that the Shadow Authority refer this matter to the Constitution Subcommittee for consideration. And I don't know whether actually it needs to go to the Standards Committee first. I'm not sure of that. But I would like to propose that motion and I call on Councillor Carlman to second it.
No. Councillor Mullins, as you have not shared that in advance of the meeting, do you have it written down so that it can be shared?
Yes, I do. I do. Thank you. Yes. And then can I speak on the motion in a minute?
Well, firstly, do you have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Carlman.
Okay. Yes. Have you got the wording? Councillor Potter.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Two quick points of order. Do we not need to vote on the existing amendment before we can consider a new amendment?
Councillor Potter, the original amendment was withdrawn.
Okay, right, thank you. Misunderstood. And second of all, could I just ask a point of clarity? You earlier referred to a prohibition on taking of photographs. Presumably that applies to us as councillors, not to members of the press in the public gallery.
Correct.
Thank you.
Members, we're just having a moment so that we can transcribe the motion, so that we can read the motion to you. Members? Okay. I'm going to read the motion and then ask the person who seconded to speak into their microphone to formally second it, please. The motion is: all councillors should be given the discretion to speak more than once on a particular item at full council, and this proposed change be referred to the Constitution Subcommittee for further consideration. Is that seconded?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. So, are there any speakers on the amendment? Councillor Follows.
Forgive me, Chair, I'm slightly confused at that. Certainly, for constitutional changes, it would be best practice, I think, to have them written down and drafted so that we can see them. But in terms of what's being proposed, one of the other reasons about not putting things through full council is because you can see areas immediately where a lack of clarity causes a problem. And so my first question on this would be, that didn't seem to give discretion to anybody else. I'm assuming that that's the Chair's discretion to do that. I'm very personally happy for this to go back to standards where it should be. I'm not going to sit here and argue a particular position on any constitutional matters, because I think they should all go back to standards as the draft constitution envisages for such changes. So personally very happy to see it go back to standards, but if the amendment were withdrawn and council noted that that referral had taken place, I'm sure the new standards committee will enjoy debating a number of these changes in due course.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you very much. And can I join others in congratulating you and Ms Zook on the Chair and Vice Chair of this Council. We look forward to working with you. As is so often the case, I absolutely agree with Paul Follows in what he said. Well, it happens occasionally. This should go to the Standards Committee, and I hope the mover will withdraw and allow that to happen. And the reason is because it's quite vague. We had a situation in Guildford Council, meeting in this chamber, where one member was able to speak, I think, 5 times in a debate because of the way the standing orders worked. And I don't think any of us want that. But we do want to allow members to express their views, whatever they might be. So I hope they'll withdraw and we can discuss that, or the Standards Committee can discuss that in their workings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mullins.
Thank you very much, Chair, and sorry for the confusion that I've caused. I just want to say that, my experience, I note that the draft constitution permits ordinary members like myself to speak at a meeting for up to 3 minutes, and I think this means we can only speak once. And I understand that this is a procedure that's used at Surrey County Council, and it may be thought to be practical on account of the large numbers of councillors on the council. I understand that. But my experience is at borough level, and the system that we use is that you can speak once, and that the chair has the discretion to allow you to come back later in the debate. And as you, Chair, recently said, this is what I understand we're meant to be doing. We're meant to be debating. So I would like to propose that the views of all members with their different experiences be sought as to whether the constitution of the Shadow Authority and then of the new authority in April should incorporate this discretionary power with the aim of improving the quality of debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a little tiny reminder, Surrey County Council is 81 councillors, we are 90. Councillor Mullins, would you like to withdraw your amendment so that it can be discussed more fully later?
My amendment is that it is discussed through the Standards Committee and the Constitution Subcommittee.
So, would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'm happy for it to go to standards, that we withdraw and go to standards. I'm happy for that to go ahead. Thank you very much.
So you're no longer seconding that motion? So the motion has fallen. The amendment.
substantive motion.
Yes, so we're now back to the substantive recommendation on your agenda. Are there any speakers? I see none. So, I beg your pardon, Councillor Hulley, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I was waiting for other colleagues to step forward first, but can I just put on the record that the Conservative Group will support the interim constitution, but we do so reluctantly because we feel it falls short in several important respects. More broadly, the constitution is deficient in a number of key areas. There is no provision for petitions. The arrangement for member questions to the leader and the new cabinet are, in our view, inadequate. The provisions in relation to the tabling of motions, in our view, is also inadequate. There's no mechanism for member statements being made during formal sittings of this council. And the provisions relating to contract procedure rules and budget procedure rules are also underdeveloped. Therefore, we give notice that our group will be bringing forward a series of amendments to the Constitution Subcommittee, which we believe will serve to strengthen provisions on motions, questions, petitions and member statements, and ensure the Constitution better reflects the standards that the public expects from us. Thank you.
Thank you. So, just checking if there are any other speakers. And I genuinely see none. I beg your pardon, Councillor Hulley. It's really difficult to see everybody. So we have 3 recommendations. If we take them en bloc, you can read them, but you have them in your agendas. So if you're comfortable, please raise your hands to say whether you agree the recommendations, please. And those against, if there are, and any abstentions. Yeah. Thank you. So that is carried. We go to now agenda item number 8, which is the election of the leader. Are there any nominations? Councillor Townsend.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Paul Follows as the leader of the West Surrey Shadow Authority.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? Councillor McShane.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second.
Thank you. There's no debate. Are there any other nominations? No. So those in favour of Councillor Paul Follows as the first leader of this authority, please show. And any against? And any abstentions? That is carried. Congratulations, Councillor Follows. Onward. And agenda item number 9, the Deputy Leader and Shadow Executive. I invite Councillor Follows to inform us of these positions, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, and particularly members of the Liberal Democrat Group, for your support. It is an absolute honour and a terrifying privilege to be leader of this authority. It is my honour and pleasure to nominate, well, to appoint to the Cabinet, starting with the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Sean MacDonald, as Deputy Leader, and the following 8 members of the Cabinet whose portfolio holdings will be announced, likely to be in the next week to 10 days, and they are in alphabetical order: Alan Ashbury, Anne-Marie Barker, Victoria Keel, Julia McShane, Ellen Nicholson, Leslie Rice, Dale Roberts and Liz Townsend. Thank you, members.
Is that noted? Thank you. So agenda item 10 is the leaders and deputy leaders of political groups. Andrew.
Chair, thank you. I can now report the appointments notified in respect to the political groups of the Council are for the Liberal Democrat. The leader is Paul Follows. Deputy Leader, Councillor Sean MacDonald. Conservative Group, Councillor Jane Austin. Deputy Leader, Councillor Jonathan Hulley. The Independent Group, Councillor Catherine Powell. Deputy is Councillor Catherine Young. And Reform UK Group is Councillor Jim McElroy. So I do apologise, Councillor Jim McElroy, and Deputy Leader is Councillor Carl Mann.
Is that so noted? Thank you. Agenda item 11, the interim statutory officer designations.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barker.
Down to me. Sorry, my laptop's decided to go on and go slow at this point with the relevant information. Okay, we'll be there in just a moment. Thank you. Okay. So again, I'm speaking my role that I've held over the last few months as Chair of the West Surrey Joint Committee, and I'm looking now to propose to the new council approval of the interim statutory officers which are required for the new Shadow Authority to operate lawfully. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Shadow Authority must have an interim head of paid service, a Section 151 officer and a monitoring officer, and that needs to be in place from this inaugural meeting as set out in the Surrey Structural Changes Order. Members should note that these are interim designations. They've been identified through a member-led and transparent process which was overseen by the Joint Committee. And the recommended designations for the roles are Andy Brown, Interim Head of Paid Service, also Returning Officer, Vicky Radford, Interim Chief Finance Officer or Section 151, and Susan Sale, Interim Monitoring Officer. Post holders will retain their substantive roles at their existing council. So Andy Brown is at Surrey County Council, Vicky Radford at Surrey Heath, and Susan Sale at Guildford and Waverley. We do need to make permanent appointments by the 31st December 2026, and there is no presumption that these interim roles will go through to those permanent posts. We're looking to start recruitment for permanent statutory officers as soon as possible, so we're hoping to have a head of paid service in place by the end of July, and the monitoring officer and Section 151 officer to follow as soon as possible after that. There are 4 recommendations for the Shadow Authority, and you'll find them on page 309 of your agenda pack. And I hope you're happy to agree those and progress the Shadow Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? Councillor Follows. Thank you. Members, are there anybody wishing to speak? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. And can I take the opportunity to congratulate you two on your elevation to be first amongst equals at this body. For some of us, it's like Groundhog Day that have been involved in the Joint Committee. We've extensively discussed some of these matters, and it was interesting to hear the input from the opposition around the Constitution, given that we didn't get those inputs previously in other sessions. But turning to the matter in hand, one of the concerns that was raised within the Joint Committee, and I think would be minuted somewhere from especially the last meeting, was that these are very intensive roles. This is a council under pressure from day one, and that we would like to see, we wanted to see as a joint committee, and hopefully the Shadow Authority would agree with me, we would want to see these roles get sufficient time and focus from the statutory officers. So I am looking for some kind of confirmation back from the responsible parties, which is effectively their relevant head of paid services, that these people will be released for up to 80% of their time, to about 80% of their time, so they can focus on the needs of this council and also make a clear distinction with their other responsibilities. There can be no ambiguity about where they are responsible for what. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Follows.
A rare moment in history that 4 of the borough council leaders of the sovereign authorities are actually sitting right here, and with Sean saying that, and myself as leader of Waverley, and Julia as leader of Guildford, and Anne-Marie as leader of Woking, and I'm sure the new leader of Spelthorne and the co-leaders of Runnymede, I am quite sure that between the sovereign authorities they can agree this, and I will tomorrow write to all of the borough council leaders and the heads of paid services for those councils, requesting that we come to terms to make these statutory officers, these interim statutory officers, effectively full-time for the duration that they hold the appointments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to welcome the interim statutory officers to their roles and place our record on thanks for them for stepping forward, because it's a hugely important moment, isn't it, for the future of our council. These roles will sit right at the heart of ensuring this authority will provide that safe and legal transition we're all pushing for and we all want. And I just want to acknowledge that the report in front of us and the process that we've seen, which was indeed member-led, transparent and supported by independent professional input. So I just want to say we're very satisfied with the robust nature of that process, and to thank them for taking on what will be a very busy job. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I see none. So we have, oh, sorry, would you like to sum up? No? There are 4 recommendations which we will take on block. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Yeah. Are there any against? And any abstentions? So that is carried.
Congratulations.
Item number 12, the implementation programme. This is on pages 319 to 431 in your agenda. Councillor Barker, would you like to speak again, please?
Thank you, Chair. So again, my task as the Chair of the Joint Committee is to hand over to you the implementation plan. These are plans that have been prepared by both the East and the West Surrey Joint Committees in accordance with the Surrey Structural Changes Order in 2026. The plan sets out how services, functions, assets, liabilities and property will safely and legally transition from the 12 existing councils to the new unitary authorities ahead of vesting day on the 1st of April 2027. So as a joint committee, members and officers across West Surrey and in parallel in East Surrey have worked collaboratively to deliver this single integrated plan, and that's good practice for coordinating activity and managing shared risks across both East and West Surrey. There have been various drafts considered at successive joint committee meetings, and a final version was noted at the West Surrey Joint Committee earlier this month. At that committee, we very much paid tribute to the staff who have worked on this implementation plan, particularly the person leading on this, who has obviously done a huge amount of work to make this come together. But we did note that we had a few points that we wanted to raise, which we were going to pick up and will be picked up by my colleagues during this meeting. We weren't content to completely recommend it because of a few queries we had there. So, with those joint committees having met for the final time, the responsibility for the transition is now transferring to this shadow authority. And so I'm looking to recommend to you that with the changes proposed, we adopt the plan in line with the shadow constitution, and the order will require us to keep this plan under review throughout the year. So essentially, we take over from the joint committee in keeping track of what is going on there. This plan does also outline the programme governance arrangements and the role of the officer implementation team, which will continue to provide programme leadership and assurance during the transition period. So the recommendations that are before you are to adopt the implementation plan, which you'll find at Appendix 1 in the papers, and approve the supporting governance arrangements, providing a clear mandate to continue delivery. Obviously, there's a huge amount and scale of change and complexity, and adjustment will be necessary along the way. If members wish to amend the plan, the Shadow Executive's responsibility going forward will be to keep this plan under review and then bring any changes back to future Shadow Council meetings. So you'll see there are two recommendations on page 319 of the agenda pack. Thank you.
Councillor Follows, are you seconding?
I am also seconding, but I also have an amendment to move.
Okay. So you are seconding?
I'm seconding the original motion and then proposing an amendment that's been supplied to Democratic Services.
Okay. Would you like to tell us your amendment?
My amendment, I think, has been supplied to all members now by your email. I can talk through the substance of it, or it can be put up on the screen if possible. I don't know whether that is possible. I can certainly read it if not, but otherwise Susan might.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, the proposed amendment, of which we have been given advance notice, is as follows. It is recommended that the West Surrey Shadow Authority resolves to 1. Refer all elements of the West Surrey corporate strategy, including the timetable, planning, communication and drafting, to the Executive Committee. 2. Receive a report updating the Executive on outstanding requests and actions from the West Surrey Joint Committee, including asset lists and service demand mapping, be provided to the Executive Committee before the 1st of August 2026. 3. Refer any decisions regarding aggregation or disaggregation to the Executive Committee to be determined before the 1st of August 2026. 4. Adopt the implementation plan for the Local Government Reorganisation Programme as presented at Annex 1, accounting for amended recommendations 1 to 3 above. 5. Approve the programme governance and implementation team arrangements to support the West Surrey Shadow Authority up to the 30th of September 2026. And 6. Require that an update be provided to members at full council on 23rd of September 2026. A renewal of the programme governance and implementation team arrangements can be sought at that session. Thank you.
And do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second that amendment.
And do you reserve your right to speak on it? You do. So are there any speakers on the amendment? Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Yes, Councillor Follows.
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence on the length of this amendment. Considering some of the processes we've been through, I do believe it's necessary. Can I first of all offer my thanks to the implementation team, particularly Nicola Kilvington, for all of their work on this. I do want to make it very clear that whilst I'm proposing these amendments, I do not wish to in any way disrespect or disregard the immense amount of work that has gone into this. I know many of you have been working ridiculous hours to get this to the state that it's in, and I will explain the sentiments of my amendment in a moment. First of all, I believe that members should be at the heart of the decision-making in this process. And to be honest, I have found that lacking right the way through this process. Right from the moment LGR came to Surrey County Council, I feel like I have been having to fight for any member engagement whatsoever. Now I am leader of this new Shadow Authority. That will end, and members' rights will be upheld, and members will be part of this process. I'm also wish to see the corporate strategy, the heart of the development of this council's agenda, be where it should be, which is with the executive. I also believe that the shadow year gives us proper time to consider that corporate strategy, to communicate with our residents, to communicate with council staff, to communicate with members, and to do the job properly and not to be rushed. And so the timetable, I believe, should revert back to the executive. As has been mentioned by Councillor Barker in her introduction, there are a number of things, and I'm sure a number of other members here will reflect on these in more time than I have, that were missing from the joint committee process that we had asked for a number of times, and I would like to see those brought to the executive with the date specified. And then finally, I also want this to come back to all of you members so that you are aware of what is happening with the implementation plan, so that you can see it, so that you can scrutinise it, so that if things are not going the way we expect and members' involvement has not been properly established and enshrined, that you can reflect upon the authority that we give here today. And so the opportunity to reflect on that comes in Amendment Recommendation 6. I'm sure my other colleagues will deal with some of the rest of it, but again, I want to thank the implementation team for all of their work. I do not wish to delay the implementation of the plan. That is something that I have mentioned as recently as today to senior officers from MHCLG. We do not wish to delay this, but members do need to understand what is happening in their name. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the amendments, being a member also of the joint committee. I know how hard officers have worked on this, but it has been a very brutal timeline, and there are some things which I'm still concerned about, and that we have requested. We have requested before a detailed methodology underpinning particularly the disaggregation of major services, especially children's services. And whilst high-level principles have been received, we have not seen that full methodology. And I think, that doesn't provide me with sufficient assurance for the services, for the disaggregation of these services. And we have not agreed that disaggregation. We also know things like the demand mapping we've requested time and time again. We know that, again, with special educational needs, that sufficiency of provision is a problem in West Surrey. So we do need to have that clear mapping of demand against delivery, staffing, assets and operational capacity as well. The implementation plan itself states that decisions on future service configurations will rest with the shadow authorities. However, we know that services are already, perhaps inevitably, but already beginning to be reconfigured into east and west structures ahead of that detailed methodology. And whilst in the implementation plan, it actually states that the allocation is not scheduled until late 2026. So again, that needs to be looked at very carefully. And I have said this time and time again about the assets. We have not agreed to a geographical split of those assets. We have agreed in principle that, of course, there will need to be a split of assets, but we have not agreed that. I have raised that several times. And yet within the implementation plan, it keeps coming across as if we have been given a blanket geographic methodology agreement to that methodology. We have not. We do desperately need to consider not only aggregation, disaggregation of services, and feel assured that we are creating services that are future-proof and are based around our residents, not based around the organisation and expediency for the organisation. They've got to be based around our residents. So I know that the report describes this as transition rather than transformation. And I appreciate that there is an awful lot more work to be done. And I just want to be clear that going forward, as has been stated by Councillor Barker, we will be looking to amend, to scrutinise and to adjust where required. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. The amendments, in truth, I just don't believe they're necessary. The implementation plan before us is the operational roadmap for that safe and lawful transition from the 12 sovereign councils into the 2 new unitary authorities. We are under no illusion about the scale of that task, but the implementation plan makes it clear that members are at the heart of that process the entire way through. The executive, you're right there in the forward plan for consultation, and the committees are all there ready to scrutinise it. That's our job for the next 10 months. The report is clear that this authority has a statutory responsible under the Structural Changes Order to keep the plan under review, revise it where necessary, during and throughout the shadow period. Officers have reiterated that point consistently throughout the Joint Committee process. All the information is not yet pulled together and known, which is what the plan provides for. Councillor Townsend, I would point out that the implementation plan makes clear about the property asset classes and the different way they are all to be treated. It's all right there in the plan. Having read the implementation plan in detail, I am happy to remind members of the administration matters such as corporate strategy and decisions regarding aggregation and disaggregation are already due to come before the executive in July under the existing forward plan arrangements. Frankly, I would expect this council to receive regular updates throughout the shadow period, not simply just in September, as suggested by this amendment. We do, however, have concerns. Some of the proposed, the theme of the amendment demonstrates an attempt to sort of further centralise, to a greater degree, of the operational and strategic decision-making within the executive, at precisely the point where robust democratic scrutiny is most important. I am pleased to see the implementation unamended provides mechanisms for that ongoing review and scrutiny. So these amendments are not good, in my view. But recognising the importance of maintaining momentum and ensuring that safe and lawful transition, we are prepared, unhappily, to support them because we recognise that we need a plan, and being unhappy with an amended plan is better than no plan at all. But let me be clear. Transparency, challenge and democratic oversight are essential to getting this right. The administration must remain accountable to the wider membership of this authority throughout the transition process. Finally, thank you to all of the officers and councillors who've worked very hard and extensively on this plan.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations on being elected as Chair, and also to your Vice Chair and for the leadership of this new Council. It is indeed an auspicious occasion as this Council sits for the very first time. Having been a member of the West Surrey Joint Committee, along with many others who sit along the front row of this chamber, I would say that I am concerned that this amendment only arrived in my inbox very shortly before the meeting and includes a number of dates that appear to be inconsistent with dates that have previously been provided and appear to be pushing things out further at a time when time is of the essence. I am also particularly concerned by the fact that it repeats again the asset list, which I completely agree with Councillor Townsend is incredibly important, and as she well knows, I have been chasing for some significant period of time. It does also miss things that we have discussed at length, and I have raised both in the West Surrey Joint Committee meetings and at Surrey County Council, associated with missing infrastructure. And missing infrastructure is particularly important in West Surrey, not just for SEND provision and special schools, but also because there is a need to rebuild some of our waste transfer stations, which will require capital expenditure, which as part of West Surrey we will struggle to borrow. So I, like Councillor Austin, my group will not object to or oppose the amendment, But I am concerned that it is not a well-written amendment. It does not cover all of the issues that are critical to this council, and it imposes timelines that are not consistent with the timeline we will need to be able to achieve safe and legal by the 1st of April 2027. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Before I get into what I was going to say on this item, Madam Chair, I would just like to draw Councillor Powell's attention to the wording of the amendment, which Section 2 asks for the Executive to be updated on all outstanding requests and actions from the West Surrey Joint Committee, which I feel would presumably cover the aforementioned items, which of any item which has been raised in the Joint Committee which hasn't yet been satisfied would be brought to the Executive. But the point I wish to make more broadly is that as a Liberal Democrat, being the operative word, and as a backbencher in particular, one significant advantage of this amendment is that by having these items come to the Executive Committee, all of the papers are placed in the public domain for members of the public to see, for us as councillors to see. Any decisions made by the Executive are, of course, subject to call-in by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and by having a report coming back to full council by September at the latest, if not before, enables all of us as members from all parties, of all persuasions, to scrutinise the transition arrangements. And I think that is incredibly important because whilst the document as proposed does make a reference to consultation with members, the mechanisms for that are vague at best and unspecified at worst. Whereas what is done in this amendment is to set up a clear process where we can at least be certain that any member can attend any executive committee, see these papers and speak on these papers, and if need be, call decisions into overview and scrutiny in addition to coming back to full council. And I believe that is very important because ultimately every decision made in the next few months will impact our residents in the form of their services for the next decade, if not longer. It is incredibly important that we get this right. An abundance of caution and abundance of transparency and scrutiny is essential, so that I am sure that none of us will be happy with every single decision which has to be made as part of this process, but we should all at least be in a position to know what decisions are being made, and for that reason I'll be voting for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Yes. Councillor Barker, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reiterate the points that have been raised by my colleagues to date. I'm particularly concerned about the approach to the disaggregation, where we've had a number of discussions at the Joint Committee, which increasingly have never been reflected in the paperwork that we have then seen subsequently. I think that is something that needs to be covered by the Executive and subsequently the other parts of this new authority. It's absolutely critical. Similarly, we do need to see the demand mapping as has been set out by Councillor Townsend. We do need to see the methodology as well. That needs to be there, and we'd like to see that. It's important. It's not going to delay things. It just makes sure we are making the right decisions at the outset. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Follows.
Thank you, and thank you, members. I'll sum up relatively briefly if I can. A Surrey Cabinet member for Assets and Infrastructure stood up in the middle of the chamber yesterday in response to a member's question and basically said she had no idea what assets Surrey held. So I take that as a starting point that perhaps we need to make sure that we are as informed as possible on all of these very important things. In response to Councillor Powell, your question redates. I put those dates in there quite specifically because I have been informed by various officers that the Executive are due to see those artefacts before the dates that I have listed there. These dates are therefore a backstop if I do not. I have unfortunately been taught by being a member of the Joint Committee for as long as I was that many of the things that we repeatedly asked for and were given dates for did not arrive. I have put these dates in specifically because I should have seen them by that point. And I have not, this backstop is there. Equally, in terms of the authority of the implementation team to progress with what they are doing and their own delegations and everything that goes with it, The extension to 30th of September means that it is a full clear week after the full council on the 23rd. So if everything has happened according to members' wishes, and as Councillor Potter has correctly pointed out, it will have been through any number of elements of the scrutiny cycle that members wish to see. I'm certainly open to requests to hold briefings on aspects of this as well, so that members can feel as confident as they can be as to the substance of the implementation plan. It is that important that they will feel comfortable to renew those delegations and authorities on the 23rd of September. But I want that to be your decision, and I want that to be your decision having been sure that your executive committee has seen all the information that we need to feel assured that this is happening properly in our name, in your name, and in the residents' name of West Surrey. I've been involved with this for, what is it now, some of us on the front bench here, 2 years, I think it's certainly felt a lot longer on many occasions. I remember writing some of the first material on this in the run-up to not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, when the Surrey leaders were meeting. We have unfortunately been taught how to act now, and I don't like having to be quite so specific in my requests in an amendment like this, but I do not feel I have any choice but to do it. And just to comment on one other thing, although slightly tangential to this, as members will see in the next 3 weeks, it is my intention with my colleagues in the executive to roll out the most comprehensive localism agenda that I believe the United Kingdom has ever seen. So watch this space on that. Rather than centralisation, you will see localism restored to this vast centralising entity, rather than what I think it would be left to if others were sitting in this seat than us up here.
So we are now voting on the amendment. Do we accept the amendment to the original motion? Yep. We will have a show of hands. Those in favour, please. And those against? And any abstentions? So that is carried. Yep, that is carried. So now we go back to the substantive recommendation as amended, and that's Councillor Barker to speak should she wish. No, Councillor Follows. Oh, I beg your pardon. Any speakers? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, can I congratulate the interim strategy officers on their roles? Can I wish them the best of luck and full cooperation, I'm sure, from myself and my colleagues. It takes some bravery to turn towards the fire instead of running away. Can I specifically thank Nicola Kilvington and all the other officers involved in preparing the plan? It is a monstrous effort and our full respect for that. Maybe just on the side, can I also just note on page 60 the input from the comms team representing all our local communities is much valued and respected. Thank you for that. The statutory office the interim statutory office will have heard my question in the previous point, and it would be helpful, it would be helpful to understand what conclusion they've come to with their heads of paid services about the amount of time they are going to be able to allocate to their roles. Perhaps they could come back to that in a moment. I note that the budget states the latest forecast is 28 million against a plan of 35 million, with the government's additional 1.8 million on top. That would tend to imply, those of us simple brains, that there's a 9 million underspend that we can look forward to. The commentary that goes with it in the papers is sadly lacking. I would like the members not to be misled, and perhaps the relevant officers could give an update on the situation there. Lastly, a point of clarity, please, in potentially passing this motion associated with the report. under Appendix 1, the exemptions on the Section 24 direction, are we actually approving those today, or are they subject to a secondary step at a later date? And then lastly, it keeps mentioning in the deck, and I mentioned Groundhog Day before, and I do feel like several hours of my life have been lost over the last few months trying to give positive input that has been ignored. But it does continue to mention the devolution programme. We don't have an approved devolution programme. We have an LGR programme. It needs to be cleaned up until such time as we, as a sovereign body and others, approve the devolution agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Can you hear me? Well, congratulations, Chairperson, on being elected, and also to your Vice Chair and to the officers today. I just have a question, and I've not been on the Joint Committee, so you'll excuse me, but it was something of interest to myself. I represent now Farnham North, and I also serve on Farnham Town Council. Given the references within the wider local government reorganisation programme to neighbourhood area committees and community-led governance, could we clarify what substantial powers or responsibilities may ultimately be devolved to town councils such as Farnham Town Council, or to the local government structures within Farnham, in line with the principle that decisions should be taken as close as possible to the communities they affect? I think particular consideration should be given to town centre and public realm management, arts, culture and heritage initiatives, community facilities and local assets, local infrastructure and streetscapes priorities, neighbourhood planning and place shaping, environmental initiatives and local tourism and economic identity. This is an important question of democracy and subsidiarity, and I was very encouraged by Councillor Follow's mention of localisation. So in summary, given the references to neighbourhood area committees and community-led governance, please could you clarify what substantive powers or responsibilities may ultimately be devolved to town councils such as Farnham Town Councils, and when we might find out more about that? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Follows.
Am I summing up? Am I doing my seconding response?
Are there any other speakers? Yes, please.
Thank you. Councillor Dixon, I will be communicating to all members probably around about the next full council on the administration's localism agenda, which I assure you will answer all of those questions. I am somebody who has been to the Farnham neighbourhood area committees, and I would prefer to see local devolution that has meaningful powers and teeth, rather than the creation of talking shops. I think you in Farnham particularly knows where I stand on this subject, but I assure you everybody else will in a few weeks' time. In terms of the actual substantive now amended, I don't really think I need to say a great deal more. I think it's very, very clear. What I would just ask, with your discretion, Chair, if you are happy for the monitoring officer through you to reply to the question regarding Section 24. There is a number of us that share that concern, and I think that would be, and as well as the question regarding officers' time. I think that would be a useful question for either the interim head of head service or yourself, if, Chair, you would allow that discretion.
Unaccustomed to speaking at full council. How very weird. But so two questions. Section 24 direction is on the forward plan. It will become to the June Shadow Executive for approval. There is a draft paper that I'm looking to discussing with the Shadow Administration, and that will come through and be approved in the June Shadow Executive. In terms of the 80% time, or full time in terms of the interim officers, I would point out there's obviously two leaders of sovereign councils that are on the West Surrey Shadow Authorities who have that discussion about some of the interim statutory officers. From my perspective, I am in discussion with the leader of Surrey County Council and indeed the Chief Executive, who is also the SRO for the LGR programme as well, to enable that backfill to happen and for that resource to be enabled for West Surrey. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I think with those points noted, then I would simply look now to recommend the implementation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So those in favour of the amended substantive recommendation, please show. Are there any against? And abstentions? So that is carried. Thank you. We come to, lucky for some, agenda item 13, the schedule of meetings for the West Surrey Shadow Authority. Councillor Barker, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is about agreeing a clear, workable schedule of meetings for the West Surrey Shadow Authority during the shadow period. Legally, we had a requirement to hold our first meeting within 14 days of the election, and we've achieved that today. After that, it's for the Shadow Authority itself to decide how and when it meets. There is a proposed schedule in the papers for this meeting, and you will have seen this in your induction papers as well, and it covers the period up to the 31st of March 2027, with an intention to try and support timely decision-making and effective governance. The Joint Committee has already considered this schedule. We did have some discussions at the Joint Committee because essentially currently the meetings are being proposed as daytime meetings, and there were discussions around whether evening meetings may come into the mix as well. I think we were conscious as a Joint Committee that there will be those who have joined this council who will have commitments that make daytime meetings very difficult, and we were very keen to have an authority that is representative of the population of West Surrey and not limited to those who are able to attend meetings during the daytime. So currently we've got meetings set for 2 p.m. in the afternoon. August and general school holiday periods, as is usual for council schedules, are avoided. But we can add or change meetings if the Constitution or business requires us going forwards. So the proposals are before you to recommend what we have here, but I know that colleagues have some proposals to put to you on amending this slightly and looking at different ways going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you seconding?
Please to second, and I also have an amendment to bring.
Would you like to bring your amendment?
Officers, I believe, have my amendment to item 13. If I can just, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Susan.
Through you, Chair, the amendment that has been shared with officers in advance is as follows. It is recommended by the West Surrey Joint Committee that the West Surrey Shadow Authority 1 notes the schedule of meetings for West Surrey Shadow Authority during the shadow period between the 11th of May 2026 and the 31st of March 2027 in accordance with Appendix 1 to this report. 2. Approves all meeting dates, times and locations up to and including July the 30th, 2026, subject to the start time of the next meeting of full council on the 30th of July 2026 being amended to 7 p.m. 3. The issue of the accessibility of council meetings for members be referred to the Standards Committee for consideration and to review the proposed schedule of meetings in Appendix 1, having conducted an equality impact assessment and consulted with the leader, and to report back to the Shadow Authority meeting on the 30th of July. Sorry, there's 4. Sorry, Chair. Notes that during the shadow period, the monitoring officer of West Surrey Shadow Authority will bring forward proposals for a schedule of meetings for West Surrey Council for the 2027-28 municipal year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder?
I do believe I do.
Councillor Keel.
Happy to second, thank you.
And do you reserve your right to speak?
I do for now, thank you.
Thank you. Now it follows.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Again, I'll try and make this brief. During the proposals during the Joint Committee, there was some lively discussion about when meetings should take place. Some of you here are new councillors completely. Some of you here are borough councillors, predominantly used to working during the evening. Many of you are county councillors, which predominantly meet during the day. However lively that debate was, it was always my opinion that the debate should be had again here once we were all elected, and the people that were actually going to have to serve on these committees should have some input into how they function. I also have a personal opinion on this, one shared by many of you in this room. We need to try and make this place as genuinely accessible to members as possible, all sorts of members. Members who are retired, members who work, members with children, members with caring responsibilities. This needs to be a place that we can all actually access and the public can access. Now, I appreciate that certain committees will certainly have to be run during the day. And once the council is fully vested, trying to run, for example, a select committee that requires people coming in giving testimony, for example, they will have to be during the day. But I do think it is possible, for example, to have full council in the evening and other committees during the day. I want this chamber to be involved in the debate about what meetings are and where meetings are, and I want them to be involved in how we work to engage members and the public going forward. This amendment tries to balance a number of elements that we need to address, though, both from a legal and ethical standpoint, but also from a practical standpoint. By item 2, dealing with all the meetings to July the 30th right now, it means that we do have stability for that first few weeks while we have that discussion. From that first full council, though, I'm proposing to move on its own to the 7 o'clock. That being said, we need to consider the impact upon officers, upon members, and upon others who are involved as stakeholders in our meeting. And just as I said with the elements on the Standards Committee, any wholesale changes like this should go through the proper processes that are outlined in the Constitution, and I think in this case, just common sense. And so I have proposed that these considerations go back to the Standards Committee so that they can have proper governance reports undertaken on them, and a quality impact assessment that is done properly as was required by law, and that we can have a report back first to me and then to the Shadow Authority for you to consider it in full on the 30th of July at that meeting. I hope that is a practical balance between the operations of the first 5 or 6 weeks of this chamber and allowing you to have a proper and rightful input into this process and to make this place as genuinely engaging as it can be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The floor is now open. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. This is one of those issues which really is about getting the culture right from day one, for officers, for members, and ultimately for the residents we're here to serve. I'll be honest, I'm a mum of 4. 2 p.m. meetings are really not good for me, personally, and I suspect many of my colleagues will have their own ideas on timings. 7 p.m. is much worse. However, I do recognise the practical limitations officers right now are trying to manage during the shadow period across these 12 existing councils, all with different meeting patterns, staffing arrangements. So I am prepared to agree and work towards the proposed meeting schedule with the 2 p.m. dates. But I'm disappointed to see this amendment for the 30th of July, 7 p.m. We're right up to the summer holiday period there with that date as well, which compounds issues. The Constitution provides for a meeting cap at 3 hours, so residents from further away will potentially be leaving here at 10 p.m, getting home after 11. West Surrey covers this very large geographical area, and it has practical implications for both members and officers travelling across the county. It's also worth recognising, yes, Surrey County Council officers are largely used to operating daytime meetings for precisely those reasons. The decisions on the meeting date, like this meeting date, like the others, should require, I agree, Councillor Follows, it's not often we do, it should require proper officer advice, assessment and costing, and it should not be taken without that work being done. But we shouldn't just make a special dispensation just for this one meeting, then, in that case. Page 399 of the implementation plan clearly states, in respect of the workforce, that any changes to working practices, locations or terms of conditions of employment fall within the requirement for an equalities impact assessment. The issue is, on the 30th of July, we don't even know which officers will be required at the moment. Members need to make a properly informed decision rather than one on the hoof. Something the leader himself only an hour ago stated he was not keen on, making decisions on the hoof. or perhaps decisions made on the hoof are okay if they are the idea of the Liberal Democrats. I will be voting against this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Powell. Thank you, Chair. I completely support the intention of the motion and the amendments that have been made in terms of making our meetings as accessible as possible, and understand the desire from some to have evening meetings, but also recognise the issues that Councillor Austin has raised about the fact that the reason Surrey County Council meetings are held during the day is because of the very large geography and because of the time it takes you to get from one place to another. So, as with Councillor Austin, I have concerns about starting meetings at 7 o'clock in the evening that will run for 3 hours, finishing at 10, because some of the members of this council will then end up returning home very late at night. I'm also concerned that the proposed amendment does not cover the cost of making this change or cover the impacts entirely on staff. It requires an equality impact assessment but does not talk about cost. And I believe quite firmly that we are going to be in a very difficult financial situation and cost needs to be taken into consideration. So as a minimum, I would request the leader considers the importance of cost on the proposed change as much as anything else. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Potter is next, and then you. Thank you.
I thought it was very rad. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the somewhat dubious distinction of being one of very few members in this chamber under the age of 40, which I apologise. I'll try not to get it to rub it in your faces. But I think it is worth noting that this is indeed a difficult balancing act to be struck, but I would respectfully disagree with Councillors Austin and Powell in terms of amending the time of one meeting, not every meeting, one meeting on one occasion only, does not require an equality impact assessment for staff in the same way that changing the entire schedule of meetings would. It is, in my view, a shame that we have not had such an assessment done as part of the LGR work prior to the formation of this council, because really it would be better if it was coming to this council with a worked up series of options with a set of equality impact assessments, but we are where we are. Having it going to the Standards Committee with an explicit reference and remit for them to review all of this, I think is sensible. But there is one distinction I wanted to make. It is what our council scheme of allowances, which we will be turning to shortly, makes provision for the payment of childcare and other carers' costs for those with caring responsibilities to enable them to attend meetings. What the allowance scheme does not provide for is for those of us who are employed, who have day jobs, is for money to pay our employers to get somebody else to do our work when we take the afternoon off to come to a council meeting. That is a distinction that is worth noting. And it is worth noting that that is in a significant part and parcel of why the county council as a whole has skewed far more elderly in its demographic than the districts and boroughs which have evening meetings. So I do think that an appropriate balance is struck here by having one meeting provisionally at 7 p.m. for our next meeting, and for all other meetings to be brought back to the Standards Committee for review and discussion with proper equality impact assessments, and yes, of course, as Councillor Powell has rightly identified, cost impact assessments as well. So I'll be supporting the amendment on those grounds.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll just make a similar point to Councillor Potter, really, in that I'm 48, my hair is grey, and the opticians told me the other day that I need varifocals, but that said, I am still, I think, within the youngest 10% percentile of this council. So we're not diverse enough. We need to make it more accessible to as many people as possible. I'm not particularly precious about one meeting. I'm happy to go with the majority for that, but the notion of looking at it to make it as accessible as possible, I think, is really, really important. And I would suggest that, I don't want to preempt what the Standards Committee might consider, but I would suggest that a range of meetings to suit people's different needs and commitments would probably be the sensible way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keele. I beg your pardon. Councillor Young.
Yep, I agree with what's been discussed so far and the importance of accessibility and the various roles that members make. But I just want to make a plea in terms of keeping it as it is for this first year. There'll be an awful lot of us in here that are, as termed, double hatters, particularly from a borough and county point of view, but we are also here to represent our parish councils and our residents, and residents groups as well. Most of those, of course, meet in the evening totally voluntarily. They are going through a period of change themselves, and they are looking to us as members elected by our residents who represent the parish councils to keep them informed and to help them through this really important transition. So in this first year, while the borough and the county councils and the district, if we have members of those members that are involved with parish councils, residents groups or any other type of association, can we please think very carefully, because if we move all the meetings to the evening, we will not be able to attend those meetings as well. And our residents, through the parish councils, are looking to us to support them through this period of transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As notable and noble as this amendment might be, could I make a suggestion that rather than making amendments of no consultation with councillors, lack of deliberation with council officials, that we actually reject this amendment today? Councillor Follows talked earlier, and perhaps quite rightly, of the issues of making changes to council paperwork on the loof without giving any measures of scrutiny. He then promised us that members would be a critical part of the decision-making process. Even Councillor Potter talked about the importance of revisions to paperwork being made following proper deliberation and discussion. So imagine my surprise, and probably the surprise of most opposition councillors, and probably actually quite a lot of the Liberal Democrat councillors, that at 2:52 this afternoon, an hour into this meeting, notifying members of this amendment and one other. Councillor Austin, correctly and rightly, talked about the culture of leadership. But what does it say about the culture of this administration and perhaps the leader of the council that already on day one we're having amendments presented to councillors and perhaps officers without any information, without scrutiny, without the impact about the decisions that we're going to make today and indeed the future? You know, if impact assessments are important for all meetings, why isn't it important for one meeting? We've got to be careful not to set a dangerous precedent. I would have hoped that a councillor as experienced as Councillor Follows would have had the foresight to consider this. Perhaps he didn't write the amendment himself, I don't know. On issues like this, we really should be working on a cross-party basis for the benefit of councillors, of this council, and indeed all of our residents.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, as our group, we would be happy to support this for one meeting, but going forward, going to standards and that, with regards to the equality assessment, etc., we are happy with that, but we are happy to support for one meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Morales.
Was because the staff were working daytimes. It was my belief that the Surrey County Council met in the daytime and boroughs met in the evening so that they didn't overlap each other, because there were many multi-hatted people in both Surrey and the boroughs. I am very aware that it is easier to get a babysitter in the evening than it is to change your working hours in the daytime, because as a gardener, I can't work in the evenings when it's dark. I have to be in daylight because I haven't got floodlights in all the gardens I work in.
I think it needs to be assessed. I think very much the Standards Committee is the appropriate place to assess that, and I'm fully happy with changing one meeting so that we can send this away for the Standards Committee to look at all the options, including the cost and the number of councillors that it would impact at the different hours. I agree there is transport across Surrey to consider, but again, we haven't definitely agreed on where we're meeting. I know we're meeting here in Guildford, but we should have a look at all the different places to get to, and I'm aware that I have another meeting this evening back in Woking, and we're leaving here just as we hit the rush hour in Guildford, and it might be less rush hour if we had a meeting that started at 7. And so I think there's many issues. We need to go away and discuss them, and having the next meeting proposed as an evening and see how different it is, and with a report coming back from the Standards Committee is absolutely excellent. So I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to just get a bit of perspective here. Whilst I appreciate opposition members and everybody having points of view on this particular topic, it is an incredibly difficult task to ram in a whole series of meetings into the diary, and that's what we have been asked, the officers were asked to do in order to get this body up and running into a congested schedule. So the dates that we have been presented with were the very best that the officers could find, where there wouldn't be clashes with existing committee meetings across all the districts and boroughs. I have a huge amount of sympathy for the Leader of the Opposition's comment around things like journey times, and I have raised the duty of care that the Council itself will have towards both its members and the officers for long commutes after meetings of whatever time of day. However, our journey to LGR was not one of our own making. It was one made in other places, including in Woodhatch, with requesting these things. And the statutory and the public said no, clearly said no to this mega authority. However, the statutory bodies came alongside the government's position and has made us the third biggest in the country, and that comes with consequences. So I think the reality is we're not going to keep everybody happy all of the time here. We do need to try and find a happy medium. And let's be frank, we're all in the same situation. We were asked to apply for a job where we didn't know it would be. We were asked to apply for this job and we didn't know what the remuneration would be, and we were asked to apply for this job and we didn't know where the hours of work, what the hours of work would be. So we're all in the same pickle here, and I would just suggest that we try and work our way through it as calmly as possible, which I think is the intention of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say, before I move to Councillor Keele or see if there are any other speakers, I didn't want to embarrass anybody, so I'm looking at all of you. But the reason I asked for phones to be on mute is because they are distracting if they phone, and especially for the person who is mid-speaking. And so I do ask that perhaps I won't have to do this a second time. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bapari.
Package was going to be, we're going into an unknown journey, but what every councillor in this room knew was that sacrifices would have to be made when they put their name forward, and that's what it's all about. I'm a triple hatter, full-time job, 3 kids, a dog. There's a lot to juggle, and a demanding wife. There's a hell of a lot to juggle, but the fact is we have to do it. We have to make sacrifices. So nothing out there that is being proposed is going to be perfect, but we're trying to make this chamber as diverse as possible, and the recommendations and just the flexibility getting scrutinised going forward would definitely help it to be more diverse than ever. So yeah, nothing's going to be perfect, but we're giving it a good go. Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers. Councillor Keele.
Thank you very much, Chair, and may I congratulate you on your first chairmanship. I'm pleased to second this amendment for the Standards Committee to review the proposed meeting schedule. I would like to thank officers for all of their work in pulling together these proposed dates, times and locations, and I understand from experience how complex this can be. I appreciate that the Shadow Unitary will have a number of committees to discharge, and these need to be scheduled carefully, but of course we will have even more once the Council takes on services in April next year. I believe we have an obligation to set up this authority in the best way we can to enable people from all walks of life to be able to take part in public life and become a councillor, and to ensure that those currently elected can carry out their duties and attend the meetings that they need to. Meeting times are often a barrier to participation for those who work and those with caring responsibilities. I agree with others who have said that we should be mindful of the geography of our large council area, and so elements like travelling times need to be considered. We also need to ensure that the public have opportunities to engage with the democratic process, and the consideration of different meeting times could better enable this too. The accessibility of meetings to members is not only an equalities issue for the current membership of the Council, but for future councillors as well. I would like to see an authority that is accessible to both the members who are here and those who might consider standing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker first.
Thank you. I have nothing to say at this time, Chair. That follows.
So just on this, answering a few of the questions, I have to say one of the reasons I put 7 o'clock in was to actually so that members could see what 7 o'clock was like. I mean, when we're having discussions around the standard committee debates on this, I think members having been to a 2 o'clock meeting and been to a 7 o'clock meeting means that actually people will have a better understanding of what the issues are, rather than hypothetically what they might be like. Just on the governance side of things, the changing of one meeting would not constitute a governance change in somebody's contract, as a full-scale change certainly would. Just to be clear, I think it's Councillor Brown, apologies, I'm going to be learning names. First of all, I always write my own amendments, as I'm sure you will see. And also, I sent it to your group leader at 21 minutes past 9 this morning, so if she didn't share it with the rest of you, I'm afraid that isn't my fault. And bearing in mind I've had, 2 weeks since the election, the fact I managed to draft some amendments at all, I'm going to take as a win for this week. Cost financial implications will be a fundamental part of every single report that is issued by Democratic Services in this council as long as I am leader, and I'm sure any other Liberal Democrat will be doing the same. I think also just to remind everybody that it doesn't need to apply to all meetings. We've got a whole batch of different types of meetings with probably different types of member profiles who are on them. I just reflect on my life as leader of Wavell Borough Council. Licensing meets at 10 in the morning because that happens to suit the members of the licensing committee. Full council meets in the evening because actually a lot of the chamber work have caring responsibilities and it lets people in. This is an opportunity to take the list of meetings, and actually I think I'd like to interject some of the future meetings into the discussion as well, because there are a few committees that I'm proposing to create in the near future, so that you can have a think about the different patterns of work-life balance, councillor life balance, and all the rest of the things. I don't have a dog, luckily, which I'm really quite pleased about, because that apparently seems to take up a lot of people's time in this chamber, not just Councillor Papari, but certainly Councillor Townsend here at the front. So I think what I'm trying to say here is, let's see what 7 o'clock is like next time on a one-off basis. Let's then use that learning to feed into what we think about all the committees, do it properly by the officers, do it properly by ourselves, and make sure we've gone through the process. So, again, I think this goes back to what I said, actually, in the beginning debate. This is taking a proper approach to running it through the governance procedures. Putting one meeting in as a test, I don't think undermines that in any way, shape or form whatsoever. So I hope members will engage constructively with this process so that we can try and make this a council where everybody who wants to be here and needs to be here can be here, and that your residents know that you are able to represent them in the best way that you can. So I once again commend the amendment to you, members, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So you will have all seen the amendment, and that is what we're voting on now. All in favour of the amendment, please show. And abstentions. So the amendment has been carried and we go back to the amended substantive. Are there any speakers? Councillor Follows, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak on the motion as amended?
I don't believe there's anything else to say.
Councillor Barker? No? So you are now voting on the substantive amendment.
Is it a point of order?
No, it's just a point of discussion.
We're voting on the amended substantive motion. All those in favour, please show. And those against? And any abstentions? So that is carried. So that is carried. So we come to agenda item 14, the political balance and allocation of committee places. Susan, this is your agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. The report before councillors provides the political balance of the Shadow Authority following the elections on 7th of May. This is set out in Appendix 1 to the report, which provides that West Surrey Shadow Authority comprises 56 Liberal Democrats, 20 Conservative members, 9 Reform councillors and 5 members of the Independent Group. The report invites councillors to agree the allocation of committee seats to each political group represented on the council in accordance with the political balance requirements which are set out in the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. The proposed allocation of seats on committees is set out in Appendix 2 to the report. Finally, members are asked to make formal appointments of councillors to committees in line with their group allocation of seats and in accordance with the nominations of their group leaders, which is set out in Appendix 3 to the report and the supplementary agenda pack. It should be noted that this item only deals with the appointment of members to committees of the Shadow Authority. The appointment of members to subcommittees, as well as the election of committee chairs and vice chairs, will be dealt with separately after this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
I'm pleased to recommend. Is there a seconder? You're seconding. You'd like to speak, Councillor Morales?
Yes, please. Some of you might all think I'm lousy, but please, I'm Louise. There's 2 typos in the list of councillors. I am Louise Morales, spelled L-O-U-I-S-E, not L-O-U-S-I-E. Thank you.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. Are there any other speakers? So we have the recommendations. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And any abstentions? So that is definitely carried. Thank you. Agenda item 15 is the scheme of members' allowances. The last item on our agenda. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. This is the final piece to recommend.
One moment.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that all members potentially have a disclosable pecuniary interest in this item as it relates to making a decision regarding the payment of allowances to yourselves and so directly relates to your financial position. The scheme of officer delegations in the adopted constitution provides at paragraph 3.1f that the Standards Committee have delegated to the monitoring officer the authority to determine any request for a dispensation under the Localism Act. I have deemed all councillors to have made such a request. In accordance with section 33.2, I've had regard to all the circumstances and consider that without the dispensation, the number of persons prohibited from participating in this business would be so great a proportion of the body transacting the business as to impede that business. I therefore grant a dispensation for all Shadow Authority councillors to be able to participate, debate and vote in all matters relating to a member's allowance scheme, and the dispensation shall remain in place for 4 years from today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barker. Thank you, Chair. And this is my final recommendation from the Joint Committee. It's seeking approval for a scheme of member allowances for the West Surrey Shadow Authority, as required by legislation, following us all taking office on the 11th of May this year. The scheme has been informed by an independent remuneration panel, and that was jointly commissioned by the East and West Surrey committees, and their report is included in the papers today at Appendix 1. The panel has made recommendations for allowances during the shadow year, with provision for an in-year review and further advice for arrangements post-vesting in April 2027. So there's a slight change in the recommendation of individual councillor allowances following the shadow year. When considering the panel's report, the Joint Committee considered that the Special Responsibility Allowance for the Chair of the Senior Officer Employment Subcommittee of the Employment Committee was low, compared with the Chair of the Employment Committee. And it was the view of the Joint Committee that the Special Responsibility Allowance for that Chair of the Senior Officer Employment Subcommittee should be increased to 50% of the same allowance for the Chair of the Employment Committee, thinking this would better reflect the significant role and anticipated workload of this post holder during the shadow period. Ultimately, it's for this shadow authority to decide whether to adopt the scheme in full, in part, or agree an alternative, and to delegate the necessary constitutional steps. So there are 4 recommendations before us. The first is considering the recommendations of the independent remuneration panel, and also the amendment that was made to that by the Joint Committee. We can then, if we wish, delegate authority to the monitoring office to make arrangements for this. We can also look to reconvene the independent remuneration panel during the shadow period to update when they can see the workload and exactly how the authority operates. And we can agree, if we wanted to, that the report comes back to us then during the year. So I'll open that up for discussion and feedback from members. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Pleased to second, and will certainly reserve this time.
Okay. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I would propose amendments to the IRP report as per the papers circulated and reserve the right to speak until seconded. Thank you.
Is your amendment seconded? Councillor Potter.
I say second, and I reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose amendments to the IRP recommendations as documented on the paper circulated, specifically focusing on those related to 2.T in the officer report dealing with child and dependent carers allowance. I've been a carer, not just for my 2 children, but also for my mother-in-law when she stayed with us as a place of safety before, during and after COVID when suffering from dementia. We had respite support for both, not just the local nursery, but also in-house carer support. I know respite is rarely used in the context of children. However, those remembering having or still have 2 under 5s will recognise why I use that word, even the grandparents amongst you too. It is not hugely different for some people with dementia, where periods of unrest and distress need love and support to restore calm and balance. Neither the nursery nor the in-house team charged us the real living wage to cover just their labour cost. They charged commercial rates, which also covered all their overheads to make a business sustainable. I think many members know that, at either end of the age spectrum, or indeed in between, care costs are not cheap. However, members requiring support to allow them to complete their legitimate duties for residents should not have to lose money relative to other members who do not have these responsibilities. This modest amendment is about fairness. During the May Joint Committee, I raised this oversight directly with the IRP, and they acknowledged it verbally, the validity of my argument. I have therefore sourced a relevant and recent government benchmark to propose the Council a 21% uplift, Shadow Authority, a 21% uplift to the allowance. I envisage any mid-year review by the IRP will pick up this oversight in their own recommendations, so this is just a temporary, though necessary, plug to be put in place. This amendment is about fairness, encouraging democratic participation, whatever your carer commitments, and setting down a marker that the new West Surrey Shadow Authority supports equity for all. I commend the amendment to the Shadow Authority and would like to take the opportunity to thank all carers, paid and especially unpaid, for the work you do in our communities for all our residents.
Thank you.
My apologies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support the amendment. I listened to the debate in the Joint Committee meeting. If we turn back, the purpose of this independent remuneration panel is precisely to provide independent recommendations and reassure the public these decisions are not simply being made by councillors for councillors. And so, in the round, including this amendment, I think we've got it about right, personally. So we are in principle happy to agree. I just wanted to personally highlight for all those councillors who are parents of young children, I'm pleased to support the childcare proposed, and similarly that dependent carers allowance, plus the adoption of the LGA parental leave policy guidance. In my case, meeting times outside of school hours means the recurring need to find and pay for childcare, and in this case that includes both afternoon and evening meetings, as I've already referred to. So, I mean, I feel bad claiming it, but I think I should, actually, for all of those parents out there, I should. So hopefully I will. I can't see anything on dog care, though, everybody. Sorry. So, who knew that that was going to be a concern? Importantly, the panel has already recommended a reduced level of allowances for the shadow year itself, and I think that does recognise the different nature of the workload we will face without casework in the next 10 months. We also welcome the recommendation to reconvene the IRP panel during the shadow period to review the operation. I think that's really important to stay nimble on that front. None of us underestimate the financial pressures facing West Surrey, nor the need to maintain public confidence in the decisions we take. But on balance, as I've said, I'm happy to report these recommendations. I'd also place on record my thanks to the panel for undertaking what is inevitably a difficult and sensitive piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Just to very briefly exercise my reserve right to speak, just wanted to highlight, as Councillor Austin has, that the amendment also involves that we will reconvene the independent remuneration panel by the 1st of December this year, so that we can review and update their recommendations in light of once we know what the operations of this council will look like going forwards. And again, I'd also like to echo our collective thanks and gratitude to the remuneration panel for their work. I think, as the childcare and dependent carers allowance shows, it is impossible when developing a scheme as broad as this to get every single aspect 100% perfect, particularly in a compressed time frame, and it is right and proper that we should amend it where we feel there has been an oversight, and in this case this amendment is important to ensure that we are not penalising those with caring responsibilities by underpaying them effectively for the cost of childcare and other dependent carers. And on that basis, happy to second and support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Apologies, there are two other speakers. So, Ms Councillor Hulley and Councillor Hives. Councillor Hulley, you're first.
Thank you very much, Chair. I too would like to support the amendment as proposed and also recognise the work of the panel and also the work of the Joint Committee in debating this issue at length. I'm also concerned, and I want to put on record, the debate that took place in the East Surrey Authority just yesterday, who decided to depart from the recommendations of the panel and vote a full allowance amount, unlike the recommendations here this afternoon. It appears that our colleagues in the East have broken ranks with our colleagues here this afternoon, despite the valiant efforts made by a number of the members of our group on that council yesterday. So I will support these amendments, and I'm pleased to put on record that it's right that we are accepting a lesser amount during our shadow year.
Thank you. Councillor Hives. Nope. No. No. Apologies. Yes, Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I'd just like to note the support from Leader of Opposition. We should try and default to working on things together rather than going at loggerheads. Thank you.
So now we are going to vote on the amendment. All those in favour, please show. And those against? And any abstentions? So that is carried. And we go back to the recommendation. Are there any other speakers? None. So we go to Councillor Follows.
I think everything has been said and have to support the amended report.
Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a useful piece. Good to see we can coalesce around such a sensible proposal as Councillor MacDonald put forward. Actually, to reference the East decision, which I think we weren't in agreement with, we were going with the independent review panel, but my understanding is from the outset, right through their joint committee and then through to the council, that was actually being led by the Conservative leader in the East. It wasn't specifically a Liberal Democrat proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to now vote on the amended recommendation. All those in favour, please show. Any against? And any abstentions? So that is carried. So, at just after 4:15, I think we've all had a very good inaugural meeting. So thank you all for being here on this beautiful sunny afternoon. Yeah, and so I declare this meeting over. But could you all remain seated to be present for the first committee meetings of this authority, please? Over to Susan for the committee meetings now, please.
Thank you. Could I please ask Councillors Shorthose, Bateman, Shaw, Wilson, Morales, Greentree, Papari, Sabari Kang, Nirmal Kang, Hulley, Lewis, Austin, Mann, O'Brien and Mullins as members of the Standards Committee to please stand if they feel able to. And all other councillors to remain seated, please. The time is now 4:19 and the meeting of the Standards Committee of West Surrey Shadow Authority has commenced. The meeting is being live streamed on the Guildford Borough Council website. The first item on the agenda is the election of the Chair of the Standards Committee. Please can I call for any nominations from the members of the Standards Committee for the election of Chair? Councillor Lord. Sorry, Councillor Wilson, sorry. Thank you. So Councillor Wilson has proposed Councillor Shorthose to be the chair. Is there a seconder? Councillor Morales. So Councillor Morales, thank you, has seconded the nomination. Are there any other nominations? I see none. I put the motion to elect Councillor Shorthose as the Chair of the Standards Committee. Is it agreed? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Shorthose has been elected as Chair of Standards, and I will now pass over to the Chair to continue the meeting. Thank you.
Do any members of the Standards Committee have any declarations of interest? No. I have not received any apologies for absence from members of the Standards Committee, nor any notification of substitutes, but I am aware that some of the names mentioned earlier as apologies, so I don't think we have a completely full team, do we? Okay, good enough to carry on. Okay. please can I call for any nominations from the members of the Standards Committee for the appointment of the Vice Chair of the committee?
I would like to propose Councillor Bateman as the Vice Chair of the Standards Committee.
Thank you. And is there a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to
Thank you, Councillor King. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Councillor Mann for the position, please.
Is he? And do you have a seconder? He's not on the committee. Is he on the committee? Yes. So we need to move to a vote.
Sorry, Chair, could I just check that that second nomination was seconded?
It was seconded by...
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move to a vote. So the first nomination was Councillor Bateman. Bateson. Thank you. And the second nomination was for Councillor Mann. So votes for Councillor Mann. It's a tie.
So, Chair, it's 8 in favour of Councillor Bateman and 6 in favour of Councillor Mann.
Okay, so Councillor Batesman is the Vice Chair. It's wrong in here. The next item on the agenda is to establish a standard subcommittee in accordance with paragraph 2.3 of Article 8 of the Constitution to be known as the Standards Subcommittee in line with the terms of reference set out in Part 3B4 of the Constitution. I propose the establishment of such a subcommittee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morales has seconded. The proposal is to establish a standard subcommittee. Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Yes. And the next item on our agenda is to establish a Constitution subcommittee in accordance with paragraph 2.3 of Article 8 of the Constitution to be known as the Constitution Subcommittee in line with the terms of reference set out in Part 3B4 of the Constitution. I propose the establishment of such a subcommittee. Do I have a seconder? Yeah. Seconder. Councillor Shaw. Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is to appoint 7 members of the Standards Committee to the membership of the Constitution Subcommittee. I have received nominations of myself, Councillor Shorthose, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Morales, Councillor Austin and Councillor Hulley. Is there a nomination of either Councillor Mann or Councillor O'Brien for the reform seat on the subcommittee? Councillor O'Brien. Okay. So Councillor O'Brien is the 7th nomination. Are the appointments to the Constitution Subcommittee approved in line with the nominations? Agreed. Therefore, thank you. I confirm that Councillors Shaw, Wilson, Morales, Shorthose, Austin, Hulley and O'Brien are appointed to the Constitution Subcommittee. Thank you, councillors. I now declare this meeting of the Standards Committee closed and look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting on 6th of July at the offices of Spelthorne Borough Council.
There's a lot more to that than I was expecting. Sorry. I owe you a drink on that one.
And he owes me money.
He does. I had no idea. Honestly. And I've watched the East one. We didn't have all that in there.
And I'm sorry about that. The next meeting.
Thank you, councillors. Could I please ask councillors King, Tong Perrott, Spencer, Wilson, Shorttoes, Leach, Steele, Thornton, Follows, Hughes, Denis, Heath, Gladstone New and Powell as members of the Employment Committee to please stand if they feel able to. All other councillors to remain seated, please. The time is now 4:27 and the meeting of the Employment Committee of West Surrey Shadow Authority has commenced. The meeting is being live streamed. The first item on the agenda is the election of the Chair of the Employment Committee. Please can I call for any nominations from the members of the Employment Committee for the election of the Chair?
Yes, I propose Vanessa King.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer has proposed Councillor King. Is there a seconder, please?
I second Councillor King for chair.
And Councillor Shorttoes has seconded the nomination of Councillor King. Are there any other nominations? I put the motion to elect Councillor King as the Chair of the Employment Committee. Is that agreed?
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor King has been elected as Chair of the Employment Committee, as I will pass over to the Chair to continue the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with your agreement, everybody, I'll take my seat. Do any members of the Employment Committee have any declarations of interest? I hear and see none. Are there any apologies for absence? I believe Councillor Steele. Marissa Heath, did you say? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Any other apologies for absence? Thank you. Please can I call for any nominations from the members of the Employment Committee for the appointment of Vice Chair to this committee?
Yeah, I propose the nomination of Councillor. I propose the nomination of Councillor Perrott for Vice Chair.
Councillor Thornton proposing Councillor Tong Perrott. Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? Do I have a second, please? Could I have your name, please, Councillor?
Thank you. I'm Councillor Richard Wilson and I second the nomination of Councillor Tong Perrott.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I put the motion to appoint Councillor Tong Perrott as the Vice Chair of the Employment Committee. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Tong Perrott has been appointed as the Vice Chair of the Employment Committee. Our next item of business is to establish a Senior Officer Employment Subcommittee. In accordance with paragraph 2.3 of Article 8 of the Constitution, in line with the terms of reference set out in Part 3B3 of the Constitution, I propose the establishment of such a subcommittee. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Follows. Is the motion agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to appoint 7 members of the Employment Committee to the membership of the Senior Officer Employment Subcommittee, to include the appointment of 1 executive member. I have received nominations from myself, Councillor King, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Follows, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Denis and Councillor Gladstone New. Are the appointments to the Senior Officer Employment Committee approved in line with nominations?
Agreed.
Thank you. I confirm those councillors named are now appointed to the Senior Officer Employment Subcommittee.
The next item on our agenda is to establish an investigating and disciplinary subcommittee in accordance with paragraph 2.3 of Article 8 of the Constitution, to be known as the Investigating and Disciplinary Subcommittee, in line with the terms of reference set out in Part 3B3 of the Constitution. I propose the establishment of such a subcommittee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Follows, thank you. Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is to appoint 5 members of the Employment Committee to membership of the Investigating and Sublist... I suddenly don't have a tongue anymore. The next item of business is to appoint 5 members of the Employment Committee to the membership of the Investigating and Disciplinary Subcommittee, to include the appointment of 1 executive member. I have received nominations of myself, Councillor King, Councillor Steele, Councillor Tong-Perrott, Councillor Heath, and the relevant executive member to be confirmed. Are the appointments to the Senior Officer Employment Committee approved in line with nominations?
Agreed.
Thank you. I confirm that councillors so named and the appropriate executive member to be appointed in due course. The next item on our agenda is to establish an appeals subcommittee of the Employment Committee in accordance with paragraph 2.3 of Article 8 of the Constitution and the terms of reference set out in Part 3B3 of the Constitution. I propose the establishment of such a committee. Do I have a second? Councillor Follows, thank you very much. Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Our next item is to appoint 5 members of the Employment Committee to the membership of the Appeals Subcommittee. I have received nominations of Councillor Shorthouse, Councillor Leach, Councillor Thornton. Have I missed something?
My apologies, Chair. I miscalculated the number of members that were required, and I have submitted you 1 too many names.
Okay.
And I must, of the names that were represented from the group, there were Sally Sorbo's, I think it was also James Thornton.
So the names I have received are Councillor Shorthose, Councillor Leach, Thornton, Follows, Heath and Powell.
There has to be an exec member on it. I have to say I'm thinking to ask either Sally, James or Ollie to step down from that, if that's all right, because I have appointed 1 too many in the list. Thank you, James.
Thank you. So that means I have nominations from Councillor Shorthouse, Councillor Leach, Councillor Follows, Councillor Heath and Councillor Powell. Is that correct? I see Councillor Hughes.
I understand that you can't serve on the Investigation and Disciplinary Subcommittee and the Appeals Committee. Actually, I'm now confused as to which one we're doing.
We're doing the Appeals Committee, Councillor.
Yeah, that's a nomination for me, Councillor Hughes, not Marissa Heath. I think that's right, isn't it, Susan?
Yes. Chair, just to clarify, the nominations now from the Liberal Democrats for the Appeals Subcommittee are Councillors Shorthose, Leach and Follows. From the Conservative Group are Councillor Hughes, and from the Independent Group are Councillor Powell.
Thank you very much. Are the appointments to the Appeals Subcommittee approved in line with the nominations? Thank you, everyone. I'm not going to confirm the names. I get it wrong. Thank you very much, everyone. I now declare this meeting of the Employment Subcommittee closed and look forward to seeing you all seated at our next meeting on the 28th of July at the offices of Surrey Heath Borough Council.
And the next meeting?
Could I please ask Councillors Fairclough, Greentree, Calder, Weldon, Hives, Wilson, Potter, Hode, Morales, Furness, Senna, Akhtar, Basie, Phillips and Dickinson Dixon as members of the Audit and Governance Committee to please stand if you feel able to. All other councillors to remain seated, please. The time is now 4:36 p.m. and the meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee of West Surrey Shadow Authority has commenced. The meeting is being live streamed. The first item on the agenda is the election of the Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. Please may I call for any nominations from the members of the Audit and Governance Committee for the Chair. Thank you, Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you. I would like to propose Councillor Matt Furness for Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fairclough has proposed Councillor Furness. Is there a seconder? Councillor Akhtar.
Councillor Akhtar for Matt Furness.
So the proposal is seconded. Are there any other nominations? I see none. I put the motion to elect Councillor Furness as the Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Furness has been elected as the Chair, and I will now pass over to him to continue the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member of the Audit and Governance Committee have any declarations of interest to declare? No? Excellent. Item 3, apologies for absence and substitutions. I've received no apologies for absence or notification of substitutions. Are there any? Okay. Item number 4, appointment of Vice Chair. I would like to propose Councillor Fairclough as Vice Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. Is there a seconder, please?
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other nominations? No? Excellent. Well, I'll put the motion then to... Sorry, was there? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you down there.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Lacey.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Okay. Excellent. In that case, as we have a contested nomination, we'll have a vote by hands. Can I start with those in favour of Councillor Fairclough as Vice Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee? Okay. Thank you. And, sorry, thank you, Councillor Basie. And those in favour of Councillor Basie, please. Thank you.
Chair, there are 10 votes in favour of Councillor Fairclough and 2 in favour of Councillor Basie.
Thank you very much. In that case, Councillor Fairclough has been elected as Vice Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you. And I'm pleased to say we don't have any subcommittees, so in that case I declare this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee closed, and I look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting on the 7th of July at the offices of Waverley Borough Council. Thank you.
The last meeting this afternoon is open.
Could I please ask Councillors Morley, Lyons, Spencer, Buchanan, Johnson, Hives, Fairclough, Greentree, Bristow, Mooney, Lord, Howarth, Mitchell, Barrett and Young as members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to please stand if you feel able to. All other councillors to remain seated. The time is now 4:39 p.m. and the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of West Surrey Shadow Authority has commenced. The first item on the agenda is the election of the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Please can I call for any nominations from members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the election of the Chair? What is his name? What's his name? Councillor. Sorry, could you give your name as well?
Mooney, please.
Thank you. Councillor Morley has proposed Councillor Mooney. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lord has seconded. Are there any other nominations? I see none. I put the motion to elect Councillor Mooney as the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Is that agreed? Thank you, councillors. Councillor Mooney has been elected as the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I shall pass over to her to continue the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have any declarations of interest? None declared. Thank you. Item 3 is apologies for absence and substitutions. I have received no apologies for absence from members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, nor any notification of substitutes. Are there any? Thank you. I move to item 4, the appointment of the Vice Chair. Please can I call for any nominations from members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the appointment of the Vice Chair of the committee? I would like to make a nomination, if I may, and that nomination is for Councillor John Morley.
Thank you. I had my hand up but didn't realise I had to put the microphone on. I'd like to second that nomination, please.
Thank you. Councillor, apologies.
Lyons.
Lyons, thank you. Has seconded Councillor Morley. Are there any other nominations? Councillor.
I'd like to nominate Richard Barrett.
So, please can I have... Oh, is there a seconder? Thank you.
Second himself, I think.
Thank you very much. So, please can I have, by a show of hands, can I call of those in favour, please raise their hands for Councillor Morley. Can all those against please raise their hands? Can all those abstaining please raise their hands? Thank you. Thank you, colleague. Okay, so can I also ask for a show of hands, please, for the nomination for Councillor Richard Barrett? Can all of those in favour please raise their hands? Thank you. Can all those against please raise their hands? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Chair, there are 11 votes in favour of Councillor Morley and 2 votes in favour of Councillor Barrett.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Morley has been appointed as the Vice Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So just to end the meeting, I'd like to thank you all. I now declare this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee closed and look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting on the 9th of July at the offices of Runnymede Borough Council. See you there. Thank you.